evening. I say, and I always tell it to friends, dear friends of mine, that irrespective what you hold in your life, whatever precious things, the most important thing is your time. And when you share with anyone, that means you value their presence in life. Today, we are honored to have your time with us, the commodity which is ultimately the most precious one you are giving to your fellow peers, and that requires a huge round of applause for yourself. Thanks, Ms. for a nice introduction and having us. The theme today, as we speak, is about the reshuffling, the talent reshuffling. And there are three major aspects which we covered. One is discover, second is engage, and third is hire. So the panel before us did cover about discovery and the hiring part, and we are tasked today to cover the engaging part, right? But important thing which I want to highlight today here is, and of course the panelists before us did speak about, that what is reshuffling? And we did cover lots of light. And what I could grasp from the discussion which was going on, that it came after the Great Resignation. Or maybe it's more refined, or people are using the terminologies to define a phenomena which not only adding up to the resignation part, but is kind of fueling it as well. So in a crux, what if you ask me, and I will ask my fellow panelists to put light on, it's something when we saw that people are voluntarily leaving their jobs for XYZ reasons. The reshuffling and the Great Reshuffle is something when people are leaving, when the purpose is something they want to sort for. The cultural alignment, their career reshuffling. And that's something is very, very important, because we did speak about it, we did see that generations before us and generations before them, it was very hygiene factors they were settling. So they were in the jobs for almost 30, 40 years without even having to bother about they want to change it. But today is not the scenario. So in context of that, I want to open the forum, and I will go with Mandeep, asking her that in this time of Great Reshuffle, how she feels that upskilling and reskilling offered by the company is important, and how they should do it. To Mandeep, please.
Thank you so much. I think in today's environment, the biggest transformation has been happening through the pandemic. That's not a secret anymore. And upskilling and reskilling are a little different from each other, and then broadening your horizons through that approach. Keeping that perspective in mind for the HR folks, of course, all of us, it's a very, very difficult time, because, of course, it's the VUCA world out there, and with the latest things that are happening as a result of ChatGPT, of course, there's a lot of things that we need to undertake. But upskilling and reskilling have a lot of impact on the overall internal mobility of staff, and keeping that from a retention perspective, various initiatives need to be taken. I don't know how many of you are aware, but World Economic Forum, there are 4 aspects that we need to upskill our talent on. One of them, of course, being digital transformation. I think the previous panel also spoke very largely about already. The other one being empathy. We need to sort of train our leaders on that front, followed by social and emotional transformation also, that we need to support our employee workforce as well on. So these are some of the parameters that we need to upskill our talent on, in addition to the digital transformation. Is some of the starting point I'd like to mention on this point. Anybody else from the panel?
See, we are living in an era where the work and workplace rapidly changing. Now, somebody narrated, from Roti Kabra Makan, we are talking about gig economy and marketing and stuff like that. You have to be updated with whatever skills are relevant. Earlier, you are a graduate of IIT and you could actually, while away your entire career or entire life on that. IIT. Now, after 5 years of your IIT, your body of work doesn't show up. They say, thank you so much. What are you doing currently? What is your current, competency or current skill that you can market yourself on? So, reskilling is important. Let us add one more layer to it. It's not just reskilling, it is multi-skilling and cross-skilling is also important. If somebody in your team leaves, can you plug in there so that your project is not derailed? Or can we have people, it's like having all-rounders in the cricket team. So that is very important. Before we go further, I know I'm tempted to actually go back to the generational shift that Mr. Tandon suggested. The generation in 60s worked for roti, kapda, makan. So their loyalties were to their needs, not to the corporations. It was like an arranged marriage where you start loving your spouse by default after some years. Then you came, choice based. Where you say, okay, roti, kapda, makan, the basic needs are taken care of. You started working for luxuries, badi gaadi, bada ghar, and choice of partner. Now I know I am, I would say, financially strong enough. Now I can exercise my choice on both sides, right? Then the third generation, now your roti, kapda, makan is taken care by your dadaji, your bangla and gaadi is taken care by your pitaji. What are you looking for? You are looking for kick in life. Maza kahan aayega? Now for that, you are switching every time, and so whenever you are switching, skilling becomes important. Reskilling becomes important. Unlearning becomes important. You can't ride on the same old horse. And you say, today I am doing something, 2 saal ke baad I got bored here. Come on, let us search for something more. So this whole idea of reshuffling also rooted in that need. So you are chasing, somebody said fulfillment, somebody said actualization, you can give any name. Basically you are chasing some purpose in life. So when you are chasing that, somewhere this reskilling, upskilling, multi-skilling, cross-skilling, all that comes in. And it is a need of the day, and it is going to be order of the day going forward. Maybe we are the last installment of the old generation. We are still, I mean, we are at a sweet spot where we still can while away a few more years and say, I retire ho jaunga, I take early retirement. But because you will be actually forced out of the workforce, and you will call it as an early retirement. But this generation will not have. I'll tell you, my son is 21 years old, 20 crossing 21. So I asked, DRDO mein mera dost hai, I arranged for internship. I said, don't worry about that. I have spoken to somebody in Skyroot. There is a startup in Hyderabad, and they are giving me some, work, which I want to learn more on, propulsion, something. I'll go there. And yeah, DRDO very prestigious, this, that, and that. कहाँ सीखने को मिलेगा? Then I asked nephew, again same age group. Okay, I will give you one job which will pay you well, but काम ज़्यादा नहीं है यार, जाओ मजे करो. Mama ji, I can't do that. I will be killing myself if I do it. I want to get into a work which will teach me, which will make me learn, where I can gain more of work than just money. Now imagine this, can you and I, 20-25 years ago, in our first job, ये choice था क्या हमारे पास? नहीं था. So I think the fact lies there. The root is. Thank you.
Very true, Mr. Jain. But I think Mr. Jain is a very adventurous person. He told an example or analogy when he said after an arranged marriage, after some time you start loving your spouse. But what he did not mention that whose spouse. And yeah, I could figure out given the personality, he's experimenting. But cool about that. Anyways, coming back to the topic is, and it's very dear to me, and I will share an example then, coming back to Vikram for one of the questions I have in mind is. So this part of talent, reshuffling, and where we are discussing about engaging, very recently I have kind of very peculiar example in terms, and I call it candid experience basically. There was a girl we interviewed almost around 5-6 weeks back, and then she added me on after the rounds. We had some decision to be taken, but then we had this position ongoing. She added on LinkedIn and started asking, okay, what happened, Amit? What the decision around that? And I asked my TA head to approach and give very clear instructions that this is how it is. What was given to her that this position is on hold and will soon come back to you. And after a few days, I saw that particular candidate posted a very nasty post on LinkedIn saying, okay, this is the experience, this and that, whatever, and the result is complete. But the basic bottom line was because the result was not there, despite the communication, the job was not given to the candidate, they acted very aggressively. And that's always a pro side because you cannot hire anyone. And there is always a fallback in the process when few are chosen and few not. But this technology is kind of leveraging good and bad both behaviors from that front. And the same line, I think my question is with Vikram, that in this age of technology, where you have data and analytics, how companies can leverage that to make informed decisions, Vikram? It would be really higher for you to speak on that.
Okay. In fact, before we started talking about the Great Reshuffle and how it is, creating such a significant shift in the job market. I recall, when Apple came out with the iPhone 10, 11 years back, right? At that point of time, a new job function got created, which was an app developer. App developer as a job function was not there before that, right? So whenever such shift happens in the industry, and today, when you talk to organizations which engage with their stakeholders or customers through apps, they will say, "Arey, developers nahi hai, they are running short of app developers, Android or iOS, and these guys are hot property." So with this, when we say reshuffle, with this after this black swan event of the pandemic, again, we saw so many things, great resignation, like you said, moving to great reshuffle. And at least I think I've already seen reverse trends of the great reshuffle. If you look at your, macroeconomic today, inflation, high inflation, you talk of Russia-Ukraine war, how it is affecting the global supply chains. I think when I talk to so many of my, friends or my professional contacts, what is your outlook? They say that people are holding on to, whatever they have. Nobody is trying to be adventurous, as people were trying to be in last 2 years. In some extent, I'm actually seeing, the reverse of, what we were seeing in the great, reshuffle, where after the resignation, when people were exploring, but not shying away to explore, what they really want to do. That phase, about life, creating a differentiation between work. On the technology part, you asked about, leveraging technology, right?
Data, technology, analytics.
Yeah. So I think, when you talk of data and analytics, it's nothing new at this point of time. At any given point of time, if you are basing your decision making on data and leveraging data, you're essentially what you're trying to do is that your decision making becomes more realistic. So whenever you have to make a decision, you start with several hypotheses, right? And what data and analytics, and when you do that journey, helps you to do is, of course, you eliminate the hypothesis that you started with, so that you are left with something which is most or highly probable, in terms of what you're trying to achieve. So I think for organizations from a perspective of talent, it is extremely important that, now again, one size doesn't fit all. What might work for my company may not work for yours, right? It is not just about the sector difference, but it is also on the evolution of the company. In the life cycle of an organization, where an organization specifically is, because at each stage, the needs and the dynamics of, the engaging with the talent, it will change. So, data and analytics, I have seen that, if you miss reading, like you say, reading the room, or reading the market, or reading where your talent pool is, or doing the internal assessments, slicing and dicing of your existing talent pool and where your potential talent pool is lying. So I think data and analytics from that perspective give you that cutting edge, that additional sharpened outlook that helps you in the decision making, essentially. But since you raised about it, but this is something that has been there. I don't see a heightened sort of a need from there. But I think from a business perspective, the decision making was largely was already there on the data, but I think from an HR perspective, HR leaders have, I believe most of the HR leaders that I am in touch with, they have already started, using a lot of data, on their decision making, making proposals, figuring out, the tools of engagement or whatever, anything, the whole spectrum. But I think it's good, because when HR starts leveraging data, using data, then you're speaking the same language that the business is attuned to. So then, when you're on the table, you act like peers, you talk like peers, and it also helps to bridge that divide between business and the HR, which sometimes happens. Okay, so cut short here, then Nitin.
Yeah, sure. So, the time is 45 minutes, and we have hundreds of questions. But then, in the essence of it, I have a very interesting question for you, Nitin. But before that, I want to tell you something. And this was covered, I think, Vineet also said something about it. Data analytics, Vikram, as you said, right? The decision and making the informed decision was always there, but the kind of advent of technology is helping people to do that. And I'm a very strong advocate of hiring people at will, but not skill. What it means that you can know for the functional talent, and many of, since you are from the same fraternity, many of the times it comes, hey, match nahi hai, skill metrics mein kahin bhi nahi hai, kaise hire kar le. But from all 2 decades I've spent, one thing I've always realized, potential is something you always value. Performance would always come. What it means is, I've in my own company last where I worked, I hired one person who was a chef, pastry chef, and we hired that person on the sales role, just as an experiment because we were from the diversity and inclusion point of time. And believe me, my friends, that particular individual was always on top of class. Why? Because his skill for the sales metrics as we were evaluating were the highest on the potential side. Functional side, it was 0 on the if I don't know how many of you use the 9-grade methodology on towards the performance and potential side of it. But when we evaluated that individual, the performance was at the lowest quadrant where the potential was the highest quadrant. And that worked magic. So given that as a context, I want to go to Nitin and ask that one, because ultimately in the same context, learning is equally important when somebody hires, and we are addressing today how we engage in that. And when learning and innovation becomes an important part of it. So the question here is, Nitin, when you want to hire and you want to engage, fostering the culture of innovation is very, very important. So if you can put some light on it from your viewpoint, that how we can leverage it and how it's important or not, that will really help audience to gauge some side of it.
Sure. Fostering a culture of innovation, I would say all that you're saying is that people should come up with ideas, and definitely most of the great ideas would come from down below. So there should be a culture, people are open on giving ideas, and people are experimenting it, on working on it. I would say in our organization recently, previously also, we've been doing all these innovation idea contests and all those reward ceremonies. But things have changed a little bit from practical perspective. Not that was any less good, maybe we have gone far ahead in that. And that is working through these cross-functional projects that we work on innovative ideas, on innovative initiatives. And the process that we follow for that is that we collect information from the HODs in terms of prioritizing 1 or 2 projects that these teams should do. What are the initiatives that could be necessary for the organization? For example, ESG is top of the town, employee engagement is top of the town, digitalization is top of the town. So there are so many important projects to be done, and when you create these cross-functional teams and get these ideas from the organization through probably some reward mechanism of innovation idea challenge, and as well as the HODs throwing these ideas, then you are forced to prioritize. You cannot invest everywhere. There is a lot of beautiful ideas that come in from every function, everybody. And through this medium of prioritizing, putting up the teams on them, tracking those projects, ensuring that projects are mentored well, and seeing what is the ROI or effectiveness that has come out of it. That completes the whole cycle. Earlier it was more popular that we get a lot of ideas, we give it to functions, some will get implemented, nobody's going to take take a track of it. But now it has changed a lot. It is much more structured, I would say. That's where innovation and learning is tying up well.
Very well said, Nitin. That's bang on. I think absolutely in this time of Great Reshuffle, that's something if we can really foster the culture which promotes the innovation and gives you that freedom to experiment more. That's a key for success. In the same line, I will come back to Mr. Jain, and I want to ask him a very, very vanilla question in terms which every HR is care about. That the employee side, it's their well-being, their their promotion in terms of how they perceive the job is important to their side. So, Mr. Jain, question to you: in this time of Great Reshuffle, how companies want to balance, the work-life balance and well-being of the employees, so that at least they can leverage and retain or engage the talent more?
Well-being is at the central stage, or it's a central piece of any good HR practice. In fact, I'm again tempted to think from our ancient practices, especially in the Marwadi community, in Jains and Singh's trading community basically. There is something called Huki Hal and Paki Hal. Hal is salary. So Suki salary is only salary. So after a few years of your service, you actually get something called Paki Hal, where your all family needs, your home, your ration, all that is taken care. The logic is simple. After the first few years when you build that sense of belongingness, you make the employee as a part of your larger family. So your well-being is his well-being and his well-being is your well-being. Now scale that up, it's a larger scale. Now you can take aid of technology and processes and all that to ensure that people's well-being is taken care of. So it's an interesting saying, they say you take care of your people will take care of your business. So, it has to be that way. Now, how do we do it? Each organization has their own formula. Whatever process they follow, whether they sign up for the BMW, that scheme that Ravi was suggesting, or they sign up for something else, if they are packaging or they are doing things in such a way that 24 hours of your employee's life is taken care, so that he can give you 10 to 12 best hours of his life to your organization. I think that's the centerpiece. There is no rocket science behind this.
Oh, that's really, really interesting. And then, the next question even I written it down, and I really wanted to push it before the time is over. But then, any one of you, if you feel the time is coming, just do like this. So I will have the signal that it's time to stop and put on the camera one. So my next question, and it's from the perspective that it was covered that everyone now has moved to work from home or work from anywhere, or not work or work, whatever. Like kind of analogies are very, very different. Every company uses it differently. So I wanted to ask Mandeep that in this remote working environment, anyway, it was challenging before as well to attract and engage the talent. And since now its location is remote, you don't know where the person is, or actually there is a person. How do you want to tackle, and what is the better way, Mandeep, to engage and hire, or in terms of discovery as well, for the remote talent? Yeah, is it working?
Right, so being a Gen Xer, I'm very glad that this topic is in the forefront, that people are talking about work-life balance and work from home or anywhere, and it's been exciting from that perspective. I think the biggest aspect that came to the forefront was for corporates to be very, very flexible on all aspects. It's not just about working hours, but in order to be able to support employees, managers have had to go above and beyond and be available for their people throughout. You've had to have conversations with people to understand the personal challenges they've been facing. In fact, especially for women employees, there was this term that was coined during the entire period of COVID and post-COVID as well about she session. So we lost a lot of women employees globally, right, where people started to manage more of home responsibilities. So that was an impact that was felt on the women workforce. But coming back to the remote environment, I think it's been a boon for most of the people. Even though now I feel there is a trend where people want, more of professional workforce want to come back to office. I think even the conversation in the first panel started off on that note, where most of us want to start coming back to the office because that mentorship and that rapport that was there in the office environment, the learning that happened on the job has sort of gone down a bit. In terms of engaging the employee workforce and sort of attracting people for employment opportunities and being an employer of choice, I think communication has been one of the key that has worked for us as an organization where you're constantly engaging with people online and through personal interactions as far as possible, of course not face to face. But having town hall meetings, having those one-on-one connects, having skip levels. In fact, we did a lot of informal things wherein we did drinks, everybody connects over drink session or coffee sessions, but it's all online. Other than that, another aspect of course is wellness, which Nitin you also mentioned about, as well as Ravi, that mental well-being has come to the forefront a lot. I think doing a lot of initiatives on that front as well have worked for corporates where you're providing assistance through counselors and psychiatrists as well wherever required, and we've done that as well for our employee workforce. And those are the things that have really worked for us from a flexibility and supporting the employees during this period.
Wow, great, awesome. Mandeep. Glad I'm here today because I'm learning new things myself. And that's the beauty of all conclaves or any of such events where you not only share the knowledge, but you learn and gain a lot more than what you share. So here in the same context, I want to go back to Vikram again and then ask him that since it's the talent reshuffle is all about the change in phenomenon which we were experiencing post-COVID, pre-COVID, and mid of COVID. I think employer branding played a very, very important role in between the transitions. The way people used to look job before and now, the perception of their brand has kind of changed or maybe playing a very important role. And I'm very unclear. I don't know myself that how do I do as a CHRO of one firm, that should I spend building that artificial brand, which I may or may not be, but then how to leverage that. And there is none other better than Vikram to put some light on it, that how this is context formulates between making that brand or not making, or do we diligently need to work upon that or not. So Vikram, over to you, please share your ideas and thought about it.
Okay, I was thinking while you were asking me that question that, I can speak on this for at least the whole day, but I have to concise it in a few minutes maybe. See, building a brand as a concept, it is ever evolving, it is ever changing. Sometimes your competition forces you to, rethink or go back to the drawing table to, talk about what your employee branding essentially means, whether to internal stakeholders or external stakeholders. There are external forces, your organization structure, if there are changes there, that pushes you to, go back and see, what exactly is an employer brand. Values as a statement, have been defining organizations and have been the flag bearer of, what the, employer branding, so as to speak, has to be. And I have seen a lot of organizations going back to the table and say, hey, we need a rethink of that, because the markets, the economies that we operate in, the people that we employ, the shifts that have been happening, consumer behavior, or from the employee's perspective, you talk of whatever we are talking, Great Resignation, employee reshuffle. That makes an employer think, my values, which probably were there for last 100 years, do they hold water today? Are they good enough? So it's not about there's a good value or a bad value, but what is more relevant, for me as an employer today, right? Some organizations have chosen to keep their values constant, but reinvigorating the whole DNA of the organization with a new mission or with a new concept of saying, okay, this will now define what we are as a brand, as an employer, right? Brand, essentially, what is brand? When we say what is a brand is of course there is a goodwill element of it, but brand is essentially what the people in the organization bring to the table as a product or as a service to the external world. Now, I believe we are focusing this conversation to the internal brand that the organizations have to create for their people, right? I think the first and the foremost, and this is something that I am very passionate about, is having a direct linkage between what your values are and how they are exhibited by the senior leadership first. If there is a mismatch between you are saying these are my values, this is what ABC, this is what I live by, you're trying to do all song and dance about driving those values, town halls and all of that, but your senior leadership does not exhibit those values, even if they don't believe in it, but they optically they don't show as believing in it. Your employer branding will go for a toss, because people, it's a common saying, right? People don't do what they are told to do. They see, they do what they see their managers doing, their seniors doing. So long as there is a disconnect between what you say we stand as an employer, whether you call it values or my mission state, my vision or whatever, but if the senior leadership is not exhibiting it, is not demonstrating, is not walking the talk, there is a problem, and it's a big challenge for HR folks. From, of course, all of us, as you mostly are HR folks, this is going to be, this is not something, you're getting new for the first time, right? So, that is a big bottleneck, that can happen. So there, you have to start at the top. If you see that there is a deficit, there is a trust deficit, there is a learning deficit, there is an adoption deficit, you have to start at the top, right? Of course, when you look at the employer brand internally, have you moved ahead, with the times? Have you changed yourself with the times? Are you choosing to keep your eyes and ears closed, or are you brave enough and bold enough to make changes, as the market is evolving? So you can either choose to be saying, hey, we will lead the market in certain areas, whether it is compensation or benefits or various other things, or you may say, I will be driven by what my environment drives me to, right? So I think great organizations, good organizations, don't always worry about beating the curve, but their maturity, in thinking is ahead of, of their peer group. I think a successful or a strong brand would be one who, who's thinking ahead. They're not trying, like daily roads. We are trying to build flyovers today, but we are solving problems of the past, right? But at the same time, 1,000 new cars are being registered every day, right? So even if you're spending, if you're making an effort, but you're solving your problems of the past, but the new problems are also getting created, right? So employer branding, I think everybody is a stakeholder. It's not just HR's mantle to deal with, right from the senior management, the HR, even the people. How do you engage the people? How do you create a culture, where people feel that I am the ambassador, I am the brand, So my company, let's say, Fung Group or Lee and Fung, it's not that brick and mortar, physical office, it's me. How do you create that sense of ownership? Now, once the gig economy kicks in, these things are going to be even a bigger challenge, right? But for now, I think you have to have a holistic view in terms of where you are, which sectors or which markets are you operating, what are your key challenges. Data analytics will come into play. You can't, you have to create a value map, for your own organization. What are the key things? Your resources are finite, your time is finite. Where do you want to focus more? You may see that there are 10 things to do, but you will have to prioritize to address maybe 3 first or 4 first.
Great. Yeah, Vikram, you could speak on and on, man. You were right. Whole day. Thank you. Yeah, so, yes, you have to snatch a mic, that's fine. But then interesting question, I will just probably, in the essence of time, we have 2 questions left, and I will ask one each to Mr. Jain, Jindal, anything. But before that, I want to say, and it's important, as a HR, I feel, and I always remember this quote which Spider-Man said, that with great power comes great responsibilities. And you are the harbinger of the power as a HR to bring that responsibility. And why I'm telling you, because my next question is kind of on the lines of saying, because you are the guys, or we are the people who are tasked, first of all, to identify the potential, as I always say, and then make that into the career progression of individual. And I give you very small one. I know I'm taking most of the real estate, but that's I want to share that. So I started my career as a physics honors graduate. I wanted to be a scientist. And then after I realized, पड़ोसी कपूर साहब का लड़के ने MCA किया, my father realized कि job तो इसको मिलेगा अच्छा, तो बेटा आप MCA कर लो. And after putting that all efforts in becoming a physics honors graduate, which I diligently did, I pursued MCA. And I got placed with one of the very reputed companies in Gurgaon, that ship-shape building is there. And I was sitting there, and whole week in the boardroom, I see all the handsome guys and beautiful girls of that company came asking us to fill the forms. And I realized, hey, power center तो यही है. आप तो प्रोग्रामर कुछ करोगे नहीं, but इनके हाथ में सारी पावर है जो ये बोलेंगे वही आप करना चाहते हो. And then I realized the calling comes कि मुझे तो HR करना है. So in 5 years I realized what I want to do. Why I'm telling you? Yeah, it is. So what I'm telling you, the responsibility we have as an HR is to, first of all, guide in the right direction to whosoever potential talent coming our way. It's not only interviewing one guy and rejecting, selecting based on the skill metrics you have. The responsibility and the greater responsibility we all have is to direct the talent in the right way. Telling that individual, buddy, this is what you would be more successful if you pursue that based on whatever wisdom it is. So coming back and not taking much of the real estate to Mr. Jain is that in this great reshuffling time, so Nitin would take the last one and then back for. So in this time, how programs like internal mobility and having resource move here and there, and the growth of the culture of growth can be combined to make an effect in this time. So how does programs like internal mobility can boost growth culture and help our cause in terms of the Great Reshuffle?
I think it's a no-brainer in the sense, unless you create in the earlier panel, it is suggested we need to understand the needs and create career paths for our people so that we chart their progress and we in fact provide them opportunity at each stage. Internal mobility is one such, enrichment of job, enrichment of their role, moving them to richer roles. I think it should be part of the whole structure itself. And most of the companies do it. In fact, I'm a big fan of Tata's whole people policy. In early 30s itself, they came up with a comprehensive manual of taking care of a person's entire journey, career path. You're getting inducted here, at the exit where you would be. In fact, that was adopted later by even government of India and so on. So I think it's an integral part of it.
Okay, great. Yeah, so that's a crisp, and you realize this कि हाँ भाई time कम है तो कर लेते हैं. So the next question, which is again very very important, and it's very close to Nitin. And why? Because I and Nitin spoke. He has a flavor, and I could gauge that this is a topic close to him. And that topic is in this time of reshuffling, where the feedback, talent feedback, and the feedback loop where you're doing something and your employees are coming back to you. How that is important, and when you combine it to the continuous learning culture, how it can help to retain, engage, and hire the best talent from the loop or talent market. If you can put some light, because that topic is close to you, I know we will all feel more learned today.
Sure, thank you. And sorry Vikram, I snatched the mic because we are between the drinks and dinner, so I was in a hurry. Okay, just kidding. So you very well said that how do we track this out or how do we work out on this area. One of the things that I've noticed that it is employees whom you're trying to put on succession pipeline It is employees whom you're trying to put in different roles and enrich them and do all those things. And a lot of times the employees are not in the center of it. A lot of times those discussions are done in the management room and decided further for it. And a lot of times employees are not really into it. They don't buy it. So a big and easy solution to that is that you have to establish a culture of hyper-personalized development journeys, which we may be doing something called as through IDPs, individual development plans for high potentials only. So there are a lot of things that we were doing for high potentials earlier, now it is to be done for everybody. The good part is technology allows you to do that. So today there is technology, or there are many companies in this technology that can give a continuous development for the employee, that can continuously assess the employee, that can continuously map the employee's role to global positions and tell the employee that these are the 3 new future skills that will come to you after 3 years. So that the employee is prepared with the future skills, so the employee is able to plan their individual development plan. Now the big question is that if you have 10 people in one small team of even customer care, those 10 people will need they will have different, I would say, interest areas or different developmental journeys for themselves. We've been giving or trying to push people with ready-made solutions. All that we need is, we need to focus on individuals, on their development plans, and then align them accordingly. And whether it's causing reshuffle or whatever it's causing, cross-skilling, upskilling, reskilling, that's just part and parcel of life. The big purpose is for them to feel that they're doing the value add and they feel that worthwhile and make money, make their career, live the balanced life. So everything lies in the hands of employee, and a lot of times we as an HR, we as a management completely miss our customer and do not keep them in the center. That's my 2 cents.
Awesome, Nitin, that's great. I think
Just one line. In this entire journey, all the HR fraternity, sitting here, whenever you feel the need for designing skilling programs and all, Sparsh Global Business School will be your partner in that.
what I feel, if we wait more, the Malai Gupta outside would be reshuffled with beta, so I won't take much of the reshuffling again. But then, I think you've been a beautiful audience. I don't know if we have a time to invite questions or not. I will ask the beautiful lady that should we do that or should we wrap? Please suggest accordingly. Should we take the questions or should we wrap this?
Any questions? Answer, no questions.
Great, that's wonderful.
So,